What's going on YouTube? Bacon here bringing you another video. This one going to be my week 9 battle for the VPL. This week we're taking on Jeff, coach of the Linden Littens. Jeff's a good friend of mine. He's actually the one who got me into competitive Mons in the first place. Senior year of college, he kind of introduced me to the concept a little bit. I had played a little bit in like early Gen 6 stuff, but I was terrible. So Jeff got me into it in a senior year of college, taught me the ropes, basically schooled me for a good while until I got a little bit better. And we played on cart most of the time. And then since then, I started this draft league, brought him in. We've actually played both in this draft league and in the ABC, if you guys have checked up on those videos. We've played, I believe, 4 times now in league prior to this, and I have happened to win every one of those instances, but a lot of them have been very close games, so don't want to take anything for granted here for sure. Jeff's a very good battler, and actually to this point in the season, we're both sitting at only 1 loss, so this could very well be a game for the #1 overall seed in the league, looking ahead to playoffs. While it is a potential playoff matchup going forward, and normally I don't want to use like my best prep for that, in this case I wouldn't say this is my best prep, but I threw together a team that I thought made a lot of sense. I didn't spend as much time on it as maybe I would have for a playoff matchup, but I still think the team overall, I didn't like hold a whole lot back while I was building it. I had a lot of ideas for this matchup, but for the most part I felt like the team that I brought ended up making a good bit of sense, and I could definitely see if we get into a playoff matchup here, bringing like a different variant of what I was thinking. But I thought this was still a good team in general, and I wanted to give Jeff a good match this week in case we didn't happen to meet in playoffs, because this could potentially be our last meeting in the VPL, since we're both retiring at the end of this season from the VPL, not from mods in general. But yeah, let's get right into the matchup here and take a look at Jeff's team. So Jeff has available the Garchomp, Necrozma, Arcanine, Empoleon, Delmise, Vikavolt, Mega Pidgeot, Clefable, Nihilego, Sneasel, and Sock. His Z users are the Garchomp, Necrozma, and Nihilego. I don't expect to see Nihilego this match. It really doesn't do a whole lot to the Mega Aggron, so I'm kind of discounting that as a potential threat here. The Vikavolt's actually a little bit interesting for me. It does kind of beat down my Mega Aggron plus Vaporeon core, so it's actually kind of a problem for me to switch into in general, because it does get grass coverage for things like Piloswine. The Necrozma, I'm expecting a setup variant of Necrozma, definitely a special setup variant, because Physical has a really difficult time breaking through my Mega Aggron. So I'm thinking something like Photon Geyser, Earth Power, Autotomize, and not really sure what his last move would be. He could be running Z on that, or he could be running Weakness Policy. Definitely gonna have to watch out for that, and try not to proc a Weakness Policy if I think he's in a position where he could go for the Autotomize and just sweep me from there. Yeah, the Necrozma is a big threat. Arcanine, I 100% expect to be a defensive variant of Arcanine, leftovers, Rocky Helmet, that kind of thing, to help deal with my Buzzwole, help deal with my Aggron, help deal with my Victini, all that kind of stuff. Just really good matchup for defensive Arcanine in this game. I really don't see him bringing a whole lot else. And if he burns my Piloswine, I think he can actually beat me 1v1. So, yeah, not a great look from the defensive kind of Arcanine in this match. Definitely going to have to be concerned about that. Mega Pidgeot, I'm glad not to see, because it's a huge threat. Obviously, it outspeeds my entire team, bar Tornadus Therium, which it does speed tie with, and can just throw off some really powerful stab hurricanes that can't miss. I can see why he might not have decided to bring in things like Vaporeon are difficult for it to break through. Mega Aggron as well is going to be able to take a hit and deal some big damage back, so I can see why he decided not to bring the Mega Pidgeot, but definitely glad to not see it here. I think that's about all my notes for this matchup. Clefable, I guess I should mention as well, could be a number of things. Calm Mind Clefable is a little bit scary versus me for sure, or just like a standard physically defensive Clefable with Thunder Wave. Stealth Rock could make sense as well, so slow down things like my Victini, things like my Tornadus. It's a good check to my Buzzwole, because even if I'm carrying Poison Jab, I'm not doing a ton to that Clefable unless I'm running Z Poison Jab, which would be pretty wild. It's not really very good versus team otherwise. In terms of running the Z move there. But yeah, that's just kind of some of my thoughts on the matchup, and I won't go super in depth on that, because obviously this is, like I mentioned, a potential playoff matchup going forward. But yeah, let's get right into my team builder here. So leading off here, we've got Ron Swanson, the Mega Aggron, running Heavy Slam, Ice Punch, Earthquake, and Toxic on the Mega Aggron. Mega Aggron, I felt like, was just kind of a must-bring this week. It can take hits from pretty much everything on his team and do a ton of damage in return. I'm actually running an Adamant Nature with 100 attack EVs. What this allows me to do is to OHKO standard Garchomp with no bulk. So I can take an Earthquake from that thing pretty easily and just fire off an Ice Punch and do some massive damage in return. Like I mentioned, it should OHKO him if he's running an offensive Garchomp with no bulk. I think if he is running offensive Garchomp, it would definitely be outspeeding my Victini anyways, so he wouldn't have that much bulk into him in the first place. But yeah, Mega Aggron I think is just really good this matchup to throw off some strong hits with Heavy Slam and Ice Punch. Earthquake's there specifically to hit the Empoleon, and Toxic's just nice to wear down things like a predicted switch into a defensive Arcanine. That would be really nice to clear out of the way for the rest of my team, and this is kind of my main check to the Clefable as well. If he's running Calm Mind Clefable or whatever, I should be able to take a hit at +1 and OHKO that thing with Heavy Slam. So yeah, pretty standard Mega Aggron set as far as the more offensive variant goes, but I've still got enough Spadef in there that I can live 2 Heat Waves from the Mega Pidgeot if I need to. Next up here is Birdbrain the Tornadus. Birdbrain has made it to every single game this season for the Infernapes. I believe Aggron's actually done the same, if I'm not mistaken. So I think those two I brought to every game to this point in the season. We're just running max special attack, max speed Tornadus, Flying EMZ, Hurricane, Focus Blast, Taunt, and Defog. Taunt is there to prevent him from defogging or from getting up his own Stealth Rocks on his Empoleon, something like that. It's also to prevent setup from things like the Clefable, things like the Necrozma. I can shut down with a Taunt. I can even taunt the Arcanine, prevent it from healing, prevent it from throwing off Will-O-Wisps, that kind of thing. I think just the overall usefulness of Taunt is really nice this matchup. Z Hurricane is just a great nuke for his team. His really only good switch into it is the Empoleon, which I do have Focus Blast for. I was going back and forth on the Z Hurricane versus the Z Focus Blast, but Z Hurricane just kind of nukes the rest of his team a lot harder, hits things like Vikavolt, Garchomp, Necrozma a lot harder, so I felt like it was worth it to run the Z on the Hurricane this week. Focus Blast should still be about a 2-hit KO on that Empoleon anyways, so I think in the long run, the Flying EMZ is nice. And with Defog, if he brings in the Empoleon as a Defog rocks away, for example, my Focus Blasts are going to be 100% accurate due to the evasion drop. So I'm not super concerned about clicking my inaccurate moves this game, because I do have the Z move and I do have the Defog potential with the Tornadus. Next up here is kind of a weird set. V's up the Victini, running Assault Vest Victini with Flame Charge, Glaciate, Blue Flare, and Psychic. Pretty much max speed, max special attack, timid nature. What Assault Vest allows me to do is take hits better from things like the Necrozma, Clefable, Mega Pidgeot, Vikavolt, all that stuff, and then just start flame charging up on his team. After a flame charge, I should outspeed everything that's not Scarfed, particularly the Sneasel, which I'm very concerned about coming this game. So I feel like Flame Charge was really nice there to boost my speed. I can outspeed, most notably, things like the Garchomp and blow that thing away with a Glaciate. Blue Flare just does a huge number of, on his team as far as neutral stab goes. Even the Empoleon really doesn't want to take a Blue Flare from my Victini. And Psychic is just there to kind of round out my coverage against his team. It's another strong neutral hit should I need it. Excuse me. Should I need it? And then it hits things hard, like the Sock specifically. It hits hard. The Nihilego, it hits hard. I considered running Psyshock, but I felt like the damage output from Psychic overall was just kind of worth it. But yeah, that's the Victini set. Hopefully I can put in some work this game. I really liked this Victini set when I came up with it. And it's kind of a variation of some of the other things I've been trying with Victini this season, as far as like speed boosting into weakness policy kind of stuff with Flame Charge. I felt like this was kind of a better example of that could be more practical, but also potentially start sweeping or breaking late game or early game. Like it's pretty much something I can use throughout the course of the match without issue. Next up here is Alduin the Hydreigon, running Metronome Hydreigon with Dark Pulse, Flash Cannon, Dragon Pulse, and Roost. Running pretty close to max speed, timid nature, max special attack. What Metronome allows me to do is 2-hit KO Clefable on the switch with Flash Cannon. I'm not certain if this is how the mechanics work, but if he protects, I'm pretty sure I still get the Metronome boost, if I'm not mistaken. So I could like Flash Cannon into a protect and then Flash Cannon again. So like it doesn't cancel out my Metronome boost if I keep spamming Flash Cannon at him. I could force out things like the Arcanine, which really shouldn't be wanting to stay in on me, fearing like a Draco Meteor, and go for a Flash Cannon and potentially catch the Clefable on the switch, and I should be able to 2-hit KO physically defensive variants of Clefable, which is kind of what I'd expect him to run this match for my Buzzwole. But yeah, basically, this thing is just really nice versus team, and it can actually 3-hit KO Empoleon as well with Dark Pulse, just because of the Metronome boost, and then Dragon Pulse is there for kind of an additional stab option to hit things that Dark Pulse. Maybe I don't want to like Dark Pulse in a Necrozma, fearing a weakness policy. Dragon Pulse obviously hits things like the Garchomp harder for whatever reason. I predict him to switch into that. It's just kind of, the dual stab's just nice to spam versus team against things that aren't Clefable. And then the Metronome boost should obviously stack up as I keep clicking the same move there. So I should be able to 2-hit KO physically defensive Arcanine as well. I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but should be able to 2-hit KO that thing with Dark Pulse. So yeah, that's the Hydreigon set. It's kind of interesting, it's kind of weird, but I feel like it's pretty good this game, and Roost allows me to come in on things like the Arcanine over the course of the match. I can catch Will-O-Wisps from that thing, no problem, and obviously Fire-type moves I resist as well, so I can just Roost on that thing, predicting a switch out, for example, because I think he'd want to save it for things like my Victini and my Buzzwole in the back. Speaking of Buzzwole, next up is Bane the Buzzwole, running Choice Scarf Buzzwole this week with Drain Punch, Stone Edge, Ice Punch, and Leech Life. Dual Stab just hits his team really hard once again. Stone Edge is there specifically to OHKO the Mega Pidgeot from full. Ice Punch is there to OHKO the Garchomp from full. Obviously I don't really have anything on this set that can hit the Clefable particularly hard, so I'm definitely going to have to deal with that thing. Otherwise, hopefully I can lure it with my Hydreigon, something like that. Would be really nice. But if I can set up for a late game Buzzwole sweep, that's definitely got some potential with the beast boosting going on. If I can lock into something like Leech Life late game against Sneasel, Necrozma, all that kind of stuff, and start getting boosts on him, that can really put in the work later in the game. And I'm actually running Adamant Nature as well to secure that OHKO on the Mega Pidgeot. And also, I didn't really need to run Jolly Nature to outspeed, but I was going to outspeed. Anything that he ran Choice Scarf would have outsped me anyway. So I felt like it's kind of made sense from the Buzzwole here, just get the extra damage output from the Adamant Nature, and hopefully get a late game clean going with the Buzzwole here. Last up here is Gurgi the Piloswine, running Eviolite Piloswine with Earthquake, Ice Shard, Icicle Crash, and Stealth Rock. Running Max Attack, Adamant Nature, enough speed to creep actually no speed invested Empoleon should he decide to run no speed on it. That way I can potentially get some big damage off on Earth with an Earthquake on that thing before he knocks me out with Scald or something like that. Weakening the Empoleon would be really nice for things like my Hydreigon and my Tornadus. So I felt like the little bit of speed on there was nice from the Piloswine. Stealth Rock's just there because it really does a number on his team. Things like Pidgeot, Sneasel, Arcanine, Vikavolt, they really all do not appreciate Stealth Rocks being up. So he'll be more pressured to defog this match than I will, I think, which is kind of rare for me because I do have the Tornadus Victini. But I think in general he'll be more pressured to defog, especially to keep his Arcanine healthy, since that's kind of his best switch in, or initial switch into my Buzzwole. If Stealth Rocks are up, even after an Intimidate, I should be able to KO that thing with a Stone Edge because I am Adamant Nature on my Buzzwole. So Stealth Rock's really important in this match. I might even just have to sack Piloswine and get him up. It's also a good check to his Garchomp, of course. With the Eviolite, I'm very bulky. I should be able to take, I think this actually takes a +2 Z outrage if I'm not mistaken. And I should be able to OHKO that thing back with an Icicle Crash. Worst case scenario, I could get a bunch of chip damage off with an Ice Shard and then revenge kill him with Buzzwole or something like that, or my Tornadus. He could also be running Choice Scarf Garchomp this week, which would be really nice for my Piloswine. But yeah, I think Piloswine just had a really good matchup here overall. I could take hits from the Pidgeot as well, fire back with some strong Icicle Crash there. And yeah, Stealth Rocks, like I mentioned, already super valuable versus team. So yeah, that's about it for my end of the matchup here. Let's get right into the match here. As you can see, he brought the Sneasel, Necrozma, Arcanine, Vikavolt, Empoleon, and Clefable. So a couple things right off the bat. His team is very slow. He didn't bring the Garchomp, he didn't bring the Mega Pidgeot, he didn't bring the Nihilego, which is really nice for like my Hydreigon and my Victini. My Tornadus as well does up to some extent, but definitely the Hydreigon really appreciates not being outsped by those things, and it can just kind of fire off some Dark Pulses and stuff versus team. Obviously the Clefable's there. Definitely going to have to try and catch that thing with a Flash Cannon on the switch. But if I manage to lure the Clefable, get it out of the way, Hydreigon's looking really nice in this game. My Victini's also looking really nice in this game if I get a Flame Charge boost. I am expecting that to be Intimidate Arcanine, not Flash Fire, so I should be able to at least get the boost off and then whack that thing with a Psychic. It's not going to OHKO it, of course, or anything like that, but if Stealth Rocks are up, if he's chipped down a little bit, he's definitely pressured to come in on some of my other mons like my Aggron and my Buzzwole. I could potentially see like a late game clean from the Victini here. That Sneasel's super threatening for sure. He's probably carrying Low Kick for my Mega Aggron. Shouldn't do too much to me, but it's still a concern, especially before I've Mega Evolved. He might actually also be carrying Aerial Ace for my Buzzwole. Not sure if he's got enough slots for that, because I do think he wants at least Icicle Crash and Knockoff, if not Ice Shard as well, and potentially even Pursuit for my Victini. If I was like V-Create Victini on Choice Scarf, he could come in and Pursuit me after I go for a V-Create, something like that. So definitely got to watch out for the Sneasel there, and Necrozma, like I mentioned, is probably a setup variant. Almost definitely special, running Earth Power, Photon Geyser, and a third move. Maybe Heat Wave. Not really sure what he'd run as his third move. Could even run Moonlight, honestly, on that Necrozma. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking here right off the bat. Let's get into the match and see what we're leading off with. So, I should mention, I'm definitely thinking Piloswine lead is good here. It kind of denies a potential Sneasel lead to some extent, which is nice for me. Can also get some big Earthquake damage off on the Empoleon potentially, and I'm pretty sure he's going to want to leave Vikavolt versus me to just get a Volt Switch off turn 1. Also, obviously, he'll have Energy Ball to hit my Piloswine, so I think he's going to leave with Vikavolt. I want to get damage off on that thing to make sure it's in range of my Hydreigon, in range of my Tornadus, in range of my Buzzwole, things like that. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lead off with the Piloswine here, as we do correctly predict the Vikavolt lead, to the extent that is really valuable to be predicting the Vikavolt lead here. Obviously, Energy Ball is still going to do a huge amount of damage to me, but I do value chip damage off on this Vikavolt. Unless he's running Roost, he shouldn't be able to heal it off, so I'm just going to go for Icicle Crash, figure out what he's running. He does go right for the Energy Ball there, and does a huge amount of damage to me. I did consider swapping into my Assault Vest Victini there to take that hit, but I just didn't want to risk him going for a Volt Switch there, predicting me to swap out. So getting the Icicle Chip damage, Icicle Crash damage off on the Vikavolt is really nice for me, and here I'm going to make a little bit of a misplay, going for a little bit more chip damage on the thing to put it in range of Flame Charge, actually, for my Victini. I do go for an Ice Shard here. In retrospect, probably should have just tried to set up Stealth Rocks there. Instead, if he wants to knock me out, he wants to knock me out. I know he's Choice Specs into Energy Ball, so I would have been able to go like free Victini or free Tornadus and just get some initiative there, but you know, no big deal. Get some Ice Shard chip off on this Arcanine. Find out he's not running Leftovers, which is nice. I'm guessing he's probably running Rocky Helmet, because that does look to be a more defensive variant of Arcanine based on that damage, so definitely expecting this to be kind of Rocky Helmet, Intimidate, close to max Phys-Def Arcanine. I am expecting it to outspeed my Buzzwole, which is noteworthy for Calcs, because that means he'll need to be running a decent bit of speed investment on it, which means he'll be lacking some bulk. But yeah, just go out to my Hydreigon here and try to catch the Clefable on the switch for the Flash Cannon. Unfortunately, he does make the smart play and goes out into Empoleon first. But I don't mind too much with the Empoleon coming in, because he's 100% going for Stealth Rocks here, which means I can start to stack some Metronome boosts with Dark Pulse here, and I'll potentially get some flinches along the way as well. So go for Dark Pulse here, and of course, because I am the Dark Pulse flinch god, I do get the flinch first try. That's great for me, because he's still probably going to stay in to set his Stealth Rocks here. He shouldn't be, like, looking at the damage, he'll think he won't be 3-hit KO'd by Dark Pulse. He might think I'm like Z Flash Cannon or something like that. But he is 3-hit KO by Dark Pulse because of the Metronome boost. So get that second Dark Pulse off here, and he should... At this point, he might not realize, because the rolls are so close together, that I'm actually Metronome here, but he does actually drop to a third one here if I decide to go for it. So I'm actually going to try and catch the Clefable again on the switch, because the Empoleon I felt like was really super valuable for coming in on Z-Fly from my Tornadus, and I was really expecting him to save it there. Probably a misplay on my end, because like, what's the worst case scenario? Clefable comes in and needs a Dark Pulse. I can figure out what he's running for as far as his set is concerned. I really probably should have just Dark Pulsed again and taken out the Empoleon, but unfortunately, I'm going to keep playing around this Empoleon very poorly. Still trying to catch the Clefable after he gets the Toxic off on me, and that's really, really bad. I'm starting to rack up a lot of chip damage on my Hydreigon, and now he's actually out of range of Dark Pulse because I have dropped the Metronome boosts at this point. So really misplayed around this Empoleon early. I could have just gotten rid of it, defogged with Tornadus later, and had no problem. My Hydreigon wouldn't be toxic. Like, I'd be in a much better situation if I hadn't been so dumb around this Empoleon. But what I'm going to do here is just roost up, get myself back to a reasonable amount of HP so I can come in later and switch out my Hydreigon here into my Tornadus, try and defog these rocks away. Tornadus isn't super important in this game. Like, yes, Z Hurricane does nuke something on his team, but if I can get rid of these Stealth Rocks, it's just as good to me, honestly, to keep kind of the path clear for my Victini in the later game. So I'm going to defog here. He's definitely going to go for another Scald. I might live it, I might not. I think the first Scald was a pretty high roll, if I'm not mistaken, so I'm expecting to live this skull, but it's not the worst thing if I don't. I get the defog off, and I do live the skull. Thankfully, do not get burned. So the Tornadus is still alive, and I can save it for regen if I want to, but I'm pretty sure he's just going to try to set up Stealth Rocks on me again here. And because of the evasion drop, I'm just going to click Focus Blast. Like, it does a huge chunk of damage to this Empoleon, which is basically dead at this point, and he does go right back up for the Stealth Rocks. So no big deal for me. I could just throw off a Hurricane here. In this instance, I don't want to defog because I think it's better to save Tornadus at this point. Actually, now that I can't get my Regenerator back and I've gotten rid of the Empoleon, so if I can get this in on something like an unboosted Clefable or Arcanine or something like that, I can just throw off a Z Hurricane or potentially defog later in the match, which would be really, really nice for me. I do outspeed everything on his team. Sneasel obviously could have Ice Shard on it, and I don't want to die to that here, so I'm going to make the safe play out into my Buzzwole, predicting him to either go for Ice Shard, or if he's feeling crazy, go for Low Kick. He does in fact go for the Low Kick, trying to catch my Mega Aggron upon switch in, but gets my Buzzwole instead. Now he doesn't know that I'm Choice Scarf at this point, but even if I'm like regular defensive Buzzwole, I'm definitely living whatever he goes for. So I'm going to lock into Stone Edge here, actually, predicting an Arcanine switch in. And we do manage to land the Stone Edge, which is great. I do only a very little bit of damage to the Arcanine. If I get a crit on my second one, I could potentially knock it out. He's definitely going for Morning Sun, though. So I feel like that's a good opportunity to get my Hydreigon in for free and just go for a Roost here. I potentially also could have gone into my Tornadus there to pick up a KO with Z Hurricane. Maybe that's what I should have done in retrospect. He might have sacked off the Vikavolt, but I think it was probably better off there actually going into my Tornadus. But able to get my Hydreigon back to a reasonable amount of HP, at least with Roost, as he just goes right for the Flare Bits with Arcanine. So I'm perfectly happy to take damage off on this if he wants to leave it in. And I'm not going to predict the Clefable this time. I'm just going to go right for Dark Pulse. My Hydreigon's not insanely needed in this game, I'll say, but if I can get rid of this Arcanine or at least get some big chip damage off on it, that's really going to set up a little bit of an avenue for my Buzzwole to win the game. So I'm gonna go for Dark Pulse here, get a flinch. I'm pretty sure he was going for Flare Blitz that turn, so I'm not necessarily certain if that mattered, but I'm just gonna go for Dark Pulse again, and because of the Metronome, I am going to be able to 2-hit KO the Arcanine. So unfortunate there again that I get another flinch, but in the long run, I'm not sure it had a huge impact. Like, if he was going for Flare Blitz there, I'm not sure it had a huge impact. If he was going for Morning Sun, then that kind of would have sucked. But the Dark Pulse damage there is super, super nice for me, and getting rid of the Arcanine is great for my Buzzwole. So I'm just going to let my Hydreigon go down. It's basically done its job at this point, and I can finally get my Aggron Mega Evolved on this Sneasel. So I'm going to bring in the Aggron here, just Mega Evolve and go for Heavy Slam. I don't care if he goes into his Vikavolt, because what I can do is just sack off my Tornadus to the Vikavolt, and then go Victini and click Flame Charge. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go for Heavy Slam, not caring, as I mentioned, if the Vikavolt comes in. I just want to get my Mega off, so I'm a better check to the Sneasel. Low Kick now should not 2-hit KO me from the range I'm at, and Heavy Slam is actually doing a decent chunk to the Vikavolt. So like I mentioned, this puts him in range of Flame Charge. I can very safely just sack my Tornadus here. If he decides to go for anything, pretty much, it's free setup for my Victini, unless he like doubled out into Sneasel or something wild like that. So he's gonna go for Thunderbolt, take his KO, which is fine by me, and even though I know he's locked into Thunderbolt, there's still no better play for me than to go into Victini. Like, I suppose I could try to go Buzzwole and start boosting on him, but he's still got that Clefable in the back. I think Victini makes a lot more sense here. Just to click Flame Charge, get that speed boost, and now we're in business. So the Sneasel obviously can't come in to revenge kill me here. The only way it's outspeeding me is with Ice Shard, which is not going to do anything, and his only other options are the Necrozma and the Clefable. So I'm just going to take the damage where I can get the damage with Blue Flare here. So if this is physically defensive Clefable, this is going to do a lot, and it turns out it's actually offensive Clefable, I think, actually, based on that damage. So, or at least, at the very least, it's just physically defensive. So Blue Flare is doing a ton of damage to him. Thankfully, do not get parried by the Thunderbolt there, and we are going to be able to 2-hit KO this Clefable with the Blue Flare. At this point, as long as I get a little bit of prior damage off on the Necrozma, my Buzzwole should be able to clean up. Like I mentioned, I do expect this to be a setup variant of Necrozma, and he definitely has to go out into it here, and he's 100% clicking Autotomize this turn. I'm pretty sure, like I mentioned, this is Earth Power. It's probably Z Earth Power, if I had to guess. But get off a ton of Blue Flare damage on this Necrozma. That is a 2-hit KO, and I'm actually out of range of a neutral Earth Power from him because I am Assault Vest still. So after all that, I'm still Assault Vest Victini. I'm able to tank this Earth Power from the Necrozma, fire back another strong Blue Flare, and knock that boy out. And yeah, that's basically going to be the game at this point, regardless of whether or not he does have Ice Shard on the Sneasel. Buzzwole will be able to come in here and clean it up, since I know it is Life Orb Sneasel, or Aggron can come in and clean it up as well. So I'm just going to go for Blue Flare here. Victini potentially getting the sweep if he didn't have Ice Shard, which he does. So my Victini is unfortunately going to go down. Not able to get the clean late game sweep with the Victini going there, but it did its job. Did a really good job taking out the Clefable and the Necrozma here. And now basically who gets the kill. It's going to be Aggron here, I think, deserves the kill. So I'm going to go right for the Heavy Slam here and knock out this Sneasel. You can see that low kick's really not doing a whole lot of damage to me. I didn't even die to a crit there. So able to KO this Sneasel and pick up a pretty close 2-0 victory. Again, sorry for the flinches. I don't know how much they ended up making a difference in the end game, but I'm sure they still made a little bit of one. I always like to see a game with no hacks as opposed to some hacks. But yeah, hopefully we get a chance to play Jeff again in playoffs. We are actually guaranteed the #1 overall seed because my Week 10 opponent did forfeit. So we finished the season at 9-1 off that forfeit win, and that grants us the #1 overall seed in the league. Going into playoffs, we're actually getting a rematch against Tyler, who, as you guys may have seen, we played in the VPL Season 3 championship game, and we also played him earlier in the season as well. So Tyler actually very surprising coming in at the 8th seed. He was supposed to obviously do a lot better than that this season, but you know, he's just had a little bit of a rough time with some hacks, and I think he's not been super satisfied with his team, but still a huge threat. Definitely not who I wanted to see on my round 1 matchup coming in as the #1 overall seed. But what can you do? You gotta beat the best to be the best, so that's what we're going to try to do coming up next week, playing Tyler in the playoffs. Tune in for that one if you guys are interested, and thank you guys for staying to this point if you did. Hope to see you all in another video later.